Such a pleasure to be here. I first just want to open up by thanking Beatstro and thanking Junior, Al, and Jazz for having us here. It is an incredible establishment here in the Bronx, and it is only fitting that we announce this great news together here at this location. It is a pleasure to be here with one of the proudest sons of the Bronx, as we are getting close to just 1 week away from the election. And I stand here as a candidate who is proud to have been the first in our city to have embarked on a cross endorsement, where I told New Yorkers on Friday that they should rank Brad Lander number 2. And I'm proud today to tell those same New Yorkers, my supporters and New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs, that they should rank Michael Blake on their ballot. Over the course of this campaign, it has been a pleasure to run alongside Michael. He is someone whose track record has spoken for itself for years, as someone with White House, State House, and local experience who has been laser focused on the most pressing challenge in this city, that of affordability. He has spoken about the need for economic mobility, the need to ensure that there is relief for those New Yorkers who are being pushed out, and the need to look beyond that which we are told is possible in this moment. And so to stand here alongside him, having been focused on that same crisis, and to receive his endorsement to be his number 2 on his ballot, it is incredibly meaningful. And I know that for all of the many moments we've shared across this campaign, the one that I hold dearest, however, is when I got to stand next to him on that debate stage, where he systematically deconstructed the mythology of Andrew Cuomo over the course of a few hours, pointing out the actual record of our former governor. And it was one that was in stark contrast to the message that that governor has been sharing over the course of this race. So I thank Michael for his clarity. I thank him for his focus. I thank him for his track record. And today I'm also proud to not only rank him, but also to thank him for being his number 2 in this race.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. The number one issue in this race has clearly been affordability. And there have been 2 candidates who have been stating that from the beginning and throughout, being myself and as Michael Blake and Assemblymember Zohran Mamdani. And because of the responsibility of who we are as sons of immigrants who understand the journey of what's happening here today, I'm continuing to ask my voters to rank me first, and very clearly asking for my voters to rank Zohran as their number 2. Because we understand the responsibility of this moment. A day where Bill Ackman, once again, has now put $250,000 to a PAC to support Andrew Cuomo's campaign, the one that is attacking DEI more than anyone else. A day where Donald Trump is stating that he will attack cities focused on DEI, specifically Democratic-led cities. The greatest threat to Andrew Cuomo and to Donald Trump is when teams of immigrants come together. And we're making it very clear that from the Bronx and the Queens and across New York City, Zohran and I are listening to what our voters are saying over and over and over again. Affordability is our top issue, and we want you to make sure that people rank both of you. To the Assembly member, we've been able to be on this journey together. When he talks about free buses, it will create opportunities for transportation all across our city, which is necessary for our communities. When we both talk about freeze the rent, the urgency of the cost of living crisis that exists in our city. When we talk through how do we actually make it clear that we can address affordability, you are watching and staring at the 2 candidates who do so. I don't think it's coincidental that we were side by side on the debate stage, and it's not a coincidence that we're doing this right now. And it is important for me to state this as a faith leader and as a reverend. My gratitude for his consistent clarity in standing up for immigrants and our communities. I remind people right now, we have a choice. And so to New York City, of course, Zohran wants you to rank him 1, and I want you to rank me 1. But I also want to be very clear that for my voters, I want you to rank me 2. And it says a lot and means a lot, given the momentum that is happening throughout this campaign, that the Assembly member is making it clear to cross-endorse me today as I'm doing the same for him. With that, we're happy to take your questions.
Please, Marcia.
I have 3 questions.
Please.
Number 1, this this alliance that you have seems to be part of a strategy for the candidates that are sort of more progressive to try to find a way that Andrew Cuomo doesn't get rid. I wondered if you could talk about that strategy and trying to use the ranked choice sorting system to hurt Andrew Cuomo's campaign.
Sorry, guys.
It's
I
all right.
apologize.
Put it, you want to lay it flat?
I think we can even,
You got one spot up here.
Okay.
we can lay it flat as all right?
Yeah, okay. Sorry, guys.
No worries, no worries. Andrew Cuomo would never have done that. You know, we both represent New Yorkers, especially in the Bronx and in Queens, who were told many things in 2021, the first time that there was ranked choice voting. I heard from many immigrants myself who were told that the more candidates they rank, the more they diminish the power of their vote. And part of this election is an opportunity to inform New Yorkers how to use their voice most powerfully. And we're seeing that though we are running against a former governor who is the son of a former governor who has universal name recognition in this city, he still cannot secure a majority of New Yorkers' support in that first round. Ranked choice voting will decide this election. And Michael and I, one of the many things we agree on from the beginning of this race has been the necessity of turning the page on the politics of the past, whether it's Eric Adams or Andrew Cuomo. And this is yet another example of us being willing to use every tool that there is and come into a partnership to ensure that for the voters who like my ideas of how we're going to make every bus fast and free, that they also know that here is a candidate just as focused on affordability, just as focused on the failings of the way in which we've defined affordability in this city and the need to have it be defined in line with the struggles of New Yorkers.
And I think, look at the last 2+ weeks. The former governor in his camp seemed to have two candidates that they consistently have something bad to say about, being Zohran and myself. And I think it's because they understand New York City, of course, is going to dictate the election, but the Queens and the Bronx and Queens clearly are going to send a message. You have the two most diverse counties in America. And you're going to see people are going to be showing up and making it very clear that they do not want Andrew Cuomo to be their governor, to be their mayor, to be anything. It is our responsibility to make it clear to rank us on your ballot so we can show a new difference in New York.
My second question has to do with the new campaign commercial that his PAC is running, the $5 million ad buy that paints you as a radical and has you walking, not only quoted talking about your desire to be a radical, it has you in your regular garb. I wonder if you'd like to talk about that commercial and your response to it.
You know, it's yet another example of Andrew Cuomo seeking to intimidate and scare and divide New Yorkers. This is a mayoral candidate whose campaign is funded by the very billionaires who put Donald Trump back in the White House. What Michael is speaking about with regards to Bill Ackman can be said for so many of the donors of that super PAC. And ultimately, we're seeing them engage in fear-mongering when we know that the campaign I'm running on, the crystal clear commitments of it, of freezing the rent, of making buses fast and free, of delivering universal childcare, these are popular with New Yorkers, some even with New Yorkers of all parties. We're seeing even majorities of Republicans support some of these policy ideas. These ideas are not radical. What's in fact radical is the idea that a former governor could resign in disgrace, showcase zero regret or acknowledgement of a mistake, and then look to the greatest job in the greatest city in the world as a concession prize. And I think, as you've said, Marcia, there has also been an attempt to smear and slander me for the fact of being the first Muslim elected official to run for mayor. We're talking about a super PAC that designed a mailer that artificially lengthened and darkened my beard. We know exactly what that is. It's blatant Islamophobia, it's racism, and ultimately it's unsurprising from a PAC that is in support of a man who led this state for more than a decade but couldn't find the time to visit a single mosque over the course of that leadership.
I think it's important to drill home, and I want to acknowledge Jasmine Sanchez, who leader and president, Three Bridges Democratic Club, next district leader in her district as well. What you're visualizing right here is what makes Andrew Cuomo scared. communities of color who are rejecting blatantly racist, discriminatory visuals to attack the assembly member. And when you think about today, the fact that Bill Ackman and their team are continuing to attack this man because of skin color, it is the latest reminder why Andrew Cuomo has no business being mayor.
So my third question is for both of you. It has to do with President Trump's tweet saying that after he did all about the National Guard and the Marines in LA, he's now going to increase ICE presence in New York and other cities. So the question is your reaction to it, and as mayor, what would you do if he does that? So two-part question for both of you.
This is yet another example of the authoritarianism coming out of Washington, D.C. And I think as we speak about that military parade, it's important to remember that there were far more Americans peacefully protesting across this country than there were standing in support of this attack on our democracy. And throughout the time that Michael and I have been running and have been New Yorkers living under an Eric Adams administration, we've been told time and again that if New York City government collaborates with Washington, D.C., we will be spared the worst. But what we've seen is New Yorkers who are still being detained and disappeared, including a New York City public high school student by the name of Dylan from the Bronx, who's currently hundreds of miles away from his mother and his two siblings, and that $80 million was taken out of our city's bank account by Elon Musk, and furthermore, that there is not that much to show for all of this collaboration, that for all of this cowardice, we are still being attacked. And now there is a proposal to intensify that. What we need in this moment is a leader who can actually stand up and fight back. And part of the reason we are so aligned in the fact that that leader cannot be Andrew Cuomo is that his donors are the same ones who put Donald Trump back in the White House. We're talking about Bill Ackman. It's not just about Bill Ackman's attack on DEI. It's also that he called the attempt to build the single largest deportation force in American history as historic. Someone who is clamoring for this cruelty. We need a mayor who is fully independent from it and able to stand up and fight back. That's exactly what I would do as the next mayor.
If you were mayor, would you stop them from coming, or how would you deal with it?
What I would first do is stand up for our sanctuary city laws. These are laws that have kept New Yorkers safe time and time again. And I would also ensure that the NYPD reports to the mayor is not assisting Trump's ICE agents. We saw a pastor peacefully observing the arrest of a migrant at Federal Plaza, just blocks away from where I got my citizenship some years ago. And he was being arrested by the NYPD. That will come to an end under my administration.
Let's be clear, as a son of Jamaican immigrants, and both of us coming from immigrant backgrounds, we're not going to tolerate the Trump racist discriminatory agenda. We will remain a sanctuary city. We will ban ICE from going into these different places. We will make sure it's clear that they're designated as safe havens. But we have to acknowledge Trump is terrified of democratic cities led by incredible visionaries of color leading. This is a man who went after the exonerated five. This is a man who went after Barack Obama. It seems if you are a person of color, he will come after you. And so our job is to make it very clear that in New York City, you stand up for immigrants, and that's what we will do. We are not afraid of Donald Trump. We're not afraid of Andrew Cuomo. We are here for the people, and that's why we're crossing Dawson today.
Mr. Mamdani, the New York Times has been nothing if not mixed in their opinion pages, messaging throughout this election cycle. First saying they wouldn't do anything, then convening a panel, and now the editorial this morning. But it's pretty scorching to both you and Mr. Cuomo. I'm wondering what you make of the New York Times now saying you don't belong on anyone's ballot.
You know, these are the opinions of about a dozen New Yorkers, and a democracy will be decided by close to 1 million New Yorkers. They certainly have the right to their opinions, and New Yorkers have the right to their votes, and I'm excited to earn those votes over this next week and become the next mayor of the city.
Assemblyman, so can you respond to Reverend Al Sharpton this weekend? He criticized you for endorsing Brad Landry. He said, look, he's a white man, but basically, what about the only black female in the race, Adrienne Adams? And he said, if that's not progressive politics. What's your response to that? And then also just going off of Henry's question, the New York Times compared you to Bill de Blasio, but they also said was one of the worst mayors, if not the worst mayor that the city has ever seen. They also said that you were out of touch with things like police policy. Do you think that you would continue that reign, I suppose, of Bill de Blasio's, as the New York Times described?
I spoke to Reverend Sharpton. I made clear the facts of this campaign, and that I'm proud to not only encourage New Yorkers to include Michael Blake on their ballot, but also Speaker Adams, also State Senator Myrie, and I've said Brad Lander should be number 2. And when I think about the crisis that is facing our city, a crisis of authoritarianism from the outside and a crisis of affordability from the inside, I think one of the most significant achievements that local government has had in recent history has been the delivery of universal pre-K. And I will stand behind that every single day of the week because it's something that made it more possible for New Yorkers to raise their families in this city. And what we're seeing is that this is the same editorial board that thought it was never going to be possible to have universal pre-K many years ago in 2013. And they have the right to their opinion. I'm excited to show that our ideas are not only urgent, they are not only feasible, but that we will in fact deliver them and implement them across the city.
I have to say this in support of the Assembly member on both points. I would not be standing here as a black man who led African American outreach for the first black president, who created the My Brother's Keeper program, the only one in this country, if I did not think that Zohran would not be great for black people. And it is ranked choice voting. It is important for us to remind people that the Assembly member stated that Comptroller Lander was his number 2. He never stated he wasn't ranking the others and wasn't supporting others. So I think it's important that we set that groundwork there. But also to the point around the Times and their interesting language that was used today. The number one issue throughout this entire campaign is affordability and cost of living. So to say anyone is out of touch doesn't really connect with the voters at all. We need to listen to what the voters say. The voters are connecting to free buses and what's happening in groceries. The voters are connecting to ending credit scores. The voters are connected to how do we reimagine community policing. That's what the voters are connecting to.
And Mr. Blake, when you were the assemblyman, in this area, right? Your district is one of the poorest in the entire state legislature. What would Mr. Mamdani do for this district, for black and brown New Yorkers, if he were elected mayor?
I think there's an alignment. That's the reason why we get along so well, right? We get to a point where we truly can pretty much end each other's sentences at forums at this point. Look, we are in a community here that for decades has been undervalued. Whether it be the South Bronx, whether it be Lower East Side, whether it be Central Brooklyn, whether it be Southeast Queens or North Shore, Staten Island, the economics have been the problem in black and brown communities. And for me, it is important that we have alignment with candidates in particular. That's the reason why I said Zohran's my number 2, that is absolutely focused on affordability. The reason why I talk about local median income is that AMI has not worked for us here. The reason when Zohran is talking about free buses is that it's really hard for people to have a chance to succeed if you don't have transportation. It just makes sense. And so what we're saying across this city is if you care about affordability, you have 2 options standing in front of you.
Zohran, Eric Adams was on Fox and Friends this morning, and he said if the Times editorial board doesn't like you or Cuomo, he's the 3rd option. Prepared for a 4-way general election with Adams as a potent force.
I am fully prepared. I started this campaign to defeat Eric Adams' 2nd term. We're currently doing so as that's what Andrew Cuomo is running for. And I know that in winning this primary, I will then be faced with that same 2nd term. And ultimately, the choice that New Yorkers will face is between a mayor who has understood the role of city government as exacerbating the cost of living crisis and a mayor who would finally address that crisis. We are talking about someone who has raised the rent 9%, is seeking to raise it up to 8% more, who has raised water bills to the highest it's been in 13 years, who has promised to fix property taxes but instead defended it at every juncture in court and lost. And when Con Ed wanted to raise gas and electric bills by $65 a month, this is someone who weighed in to support their application when I was on the other side rejecting it. Ultimately, what New Yorkers care about is, can they afford to live in the city they call home? Eric Adams has made it almost impossible for them to do so. And I'm proud to be here alongside Michael Blake, because what has united us throughout this campaign is, how do we make this city affordable for the New Yorkers who've built it? And what we're seeing is a former governor moving back to New York City after 30 years of not living here, and finding so much of this focus on affordability to be beneath him. And I understand that, because if I was paying $8,000 a month for a Midtown Manhattan apartment, I would also not understand the urgency of these very issues. But ultimately, what we're going to see on June 24th are New Yorkers who want to turn the page on this failed era of politics.
Eric Adams had his chance to have a say. He could have ran in the Democratic primary. He knew he was going to lose. So it's convenient for him to have commentary about other candidates now while he's sitting on the sidelines.
Back to Adrian Adams, do you think you will cross the first with her? With Adrian? Yeah.
I've said from the beginning that New Yorkers should rank Speaker Adams on their ballots, and I've been proud to tell my supporters to donate to her campaign, and I continue to respect her track record, her work, and the campaign that she's running. And I think that New Yorkers should continue to include her on their ballots.
Same.
Not endorse you? I mean, what was the confusion there, I guess, or was there any confusion?
There hasn't been any confusion in that I've said for months that I'm proud to be a part of the Working Families Party slate. I've said for months to rank the slate. That includes 3 other candidates. I then cross-endorsed with Controller Lander. You're saying to New Yorkers to have each of us as their number 2. And I'm proud now to tell New Yorkers that Michael Blake should be on their ballot. And he should be on their ballot. And I just want to say something clear about this, which is that in many ways, Michael and I are following the example of our own voters. We have been hearing of this partnership before we even made this decision, where voters have come up to us and said, I'm voting for you and I'm voting for Blake. And we are catching up, and ultimately that's because too often politicians are lecturing instead of listening. And in listening to our supporters across this city, it's been made clear to us that this focus on affordability, it's not only shared, but it can actually be delivered if we partner together to do so.
So,
Last question.
Do you want to add something?
so just to crystallize the point, the Assembly member has been quite consistent of the slate, and today publicly with me. I think it's pretty clear who he's conveying should be on the ballot. I think it is important for us to not find ways to be divided and distracted, but to focus on, you have a group of 5 that actually are on the right side.
Any last questions? All set. Thank you so much.
It was a good show. Beautiful.
I'm excited for this.
Yeah, man.